This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on December 18th, 2024, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Karen Latin, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Xfinity Channel 1072 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It is being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you've been recognized by the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you are not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you have been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raised hand feature. So that we have a record of a quorum, I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Elise Gordon.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey. I don't think she's here. Eric Hilbert. He's not here. Paul Johnson.
Present.
Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
And I am here. We have established that we have a quorum. Before we begin the agenda, are there any announcements about any requests for continuances today? Catherine.
We have one continuance request to amend an order of conditions at 3 Oyster Drive. The applicant has requested a continuance to January 8, 2025.
Thank you. At this point, Catherine Ricks, Chatham's Assistant Conservation Agent, will now lead us through the agenda.
We have a request to amend an order of conditions at 3 Oyster Drive, map 15A, parcel 8H15B for 3 Oyster Drive LLC, Mass DEP, SE number 10-3599, raise and replace existing dwelling. Amendment is to downscale the project wherein the existing dwelling will remain intact and the soil absorption systems raised and replaced with the applications of Sledgehammer IA technology under remedial use approval. Phase 2. The applicant has requested a continuance to January 8, 2025.
Thank you. Okay.
I move that we continue 3 Oyster Drive to January 8th, 2025.
I need a second.
Oh, that's me. Second.
Okay. Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, Catherine, the next.
Request to amend an order of conditions at 1070 Orleans Road, map 10K, parcel 23-A2 for John and Mary Boyle, Mass DEP, SE number 10-3611, landscaping, construction of a boardwalk, addition of fiber rolls, draft amended order of conditions.
Okay. Did any commissioners, do you have any modifications to this amended order? No. Does
No new
anybody who's online have any amendments to this order? I do know we need to continue it, but we were going to see if anything needed to be modified before then we continue it to another meeting. Looks like no. And I believe, Catherine, did they ask that we continue to the 22nd of January, I think?
Yes, the 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we continue 1070 Orleans Road to January 22nd, 2025.
Second.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. All right. So, Catherine, the next.
Notice of intent application at 189 Moonpenny Lane, map 10H, parcel 6 for Francis and Christina Fabrizio, Mass SE number 10-3713, construction of a Title V subsurface sewage disposal system within land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Hello.
Good afternoon, David Clark on behalf of the Fabrizios. They recently purchased this property, and it is served by cesspools, so they're under order by the Board of Health to upgrade. As you can see, there's a lot going on this property. To compound things, it's served by a private well. There's no municipal water available on this section of Moonpenny Lane. So as such, we have to work around that, and we weren't able to work around that. And we're proposing to relocate the well so that we can maximize the separation of the well to the leaching field. Leaching field is located as far away from the well as we can get it, and keeping in mind we need to be as far away from Worcester Pond River as possible. So that's really the only location where we show it. There is a small section of the yard in the northeast corner or the north corner that's outside of all the setback requirements. But that would place the leach field up gradient of a well for this property, and so that's not something that's permittable. So we're stuck with the location that's shown on the plan. So to minimize the impacts on the floodplain, we're adding an IA technology. As you heard one of your last hearings with the sledgehammer, this is not a sledgehammer, it's a fast system, but with the use of IA technology, you have a choice of either lowering or minimizing the separation between the bottom of the system and groundwater, or getting a 50% reduction in the size of the leach area. So in this instance, we chose the 50% reduction in the leach area because that gets us to the 100 feet separation between the leach field and the river, or the mean high water mark of the river. If we had gone with the minimizing the separation to groundwater, we'd be able to lower it by a couple of feet, but it'd be twice as big. And that footprint of being twice as big would put about 50 more square feet of the leach field in the floodplain. So this minimizes the amount of fill in the floodplain. And that's about it. In order to move the well, we have to construct a temporary construction access between the two garages to get up the hill. There are a couple of ornamental trees there. One of them I think we can just barrel block and keep. The other one needs to be removed or removed and set aside and replanted. There are two trees in the leach field. One is a little scrub oak that's been hacked to death over the last 80 years. And the other one is a more substantial ornamental tree. Actually, there's 3 trees there, and there's also an apple tree. That I think those 2 trees, the ornamental and the apple, are too big to move. So they'll be removed, and we're more than happy to put replacement trees in. We don't have a landscape plan in that we can't really plant anything over the leach field that has a substantial root system. So we're just planning on loaming and seeding over the system with a native grass mix. There might be some opportunity to plant something more substantial on the side slopes. But again, that's awful close to the system, and we'd prefer to keep that as a grass mix. Other than that, we went to the Board of Health this past Monday night and got approval, so this is the last step.
Thank you. All right. Only question I have is, we need a mitigation plan to show where, what the trees that are going in, you say 6 native trees, and where they're located, where they'll be placed. And we should know what the trees coming out are.
Yeah, but they're all non-natives.
Yeah,
That's obvious.
but we should have a little, I can see where they are
Yeah.
on the plan.
So you just need a sketch showing where the replacement trees are going, okay?
Right. And what they are.
What the replacement trees are
Yeah.
gonna be, yeah.
All right. I'm going to open it to other commissioners before I ask anything else. Anybody? Go ahead, Janet.
David, So this is, it's a little confusing to me. Some of the areas of confusion that I have go to the existing structure that's there, the house. So the narrative in the notice of intent refers to a 9-bedroom house. The assessor's card says it's a 7-bedroom house, and the marketing materials called it a 6-bedroom house. So can you clarify what the situation is, and if you have any explanation for why it's all
The
over
house
the
is,
map?
the house is over 80 years old, and it has been used as a 9-bedroom house. There are 2 bedrooms above the garage and 7 bedrooms in the dwelling. After a walkthrough with Judy Giorgio, one of the bedrooms above the garage really can't be considered a bedroom, and then one of the bedrooms in the main house can't be considered a bedroom under the current definition of the Board of Health. So we agreed that we would design for 7.
And as far, that existing cesspool system was adequate for that
No.
intensity of use? No?
The former owner had been there for decades and primarily lived alone for the last decade or so. So it did not get the use as a modern 7 or 9-bedroom house would get. I know back in the 80s, the bedrooms above the garage was used as an apartment, but that was seasonal. So it's always been a summer home for the most part, and cesspools categorically fail under the Board of Health regulations. So.
Yeah. So the system that you've designed will be adequate to service a 7-bedroom house?
Yes, with the treatment. That's the
With
key.
Yeah,
is
we'll
that
get to that in a second, because I have some questions about that. Okay. So you don't know yet, I'm assuming, what the ultimate plan for the property is going to be in terms of redevelopment?
there will be redevelopment. They're working with an architect now, but those plans could take 2 years to bring before the board, or most all the boards.
So when you reduced the soil absorption system, can you explain to me how the smaller leach field does provide adequate treatment for even the flow coming from a 7-bedroom?
So in a standard Title V system, the only thing the septic tank provides is a mechanism to settle out solids and remove grease and that effluent from that tank goes out to the leach field. It's still heavily loaded with suspended solids. So what the treatment system does, and this is the primary function of all IA technologies, is to biologically treat the wastewater to remove suspended solids and also dissolve solids. A secondary benefit is the reduction in nitrogen. Excuse me. So, again, sorry, you can have suspended solids in a coming out of a septic tank in the parts per 100. The clarified effluent leaving the treatment system is required to be below 30 parts per million. So there's at least a 10 times reduction in the suspended solids. Because of that, you can load the leach field at a greater rate. Similarly, with the Chatham's water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, Title V says untreated wastewater you can load at 3/4 of a gallon per square foot per day. When Chatham went to tertiary treatment with their wastewater treatment plant, the engineers looked at the soils in South Chatham, and that's actually loaded at 7 to 8 gallons per square foot per day because of the level of treatment It's basically, you look at the water coming out of, after a tertiary treatment, and you put in a clear glass bottle, it's clear. This doesn't treat to that level, but it's a significant improvement of, as opposed to what's coming out of a septic, the normal septic tank.
So then the difference you're saying between secondary, which is just the primary treatment, and then the effluent goes to the leach field, and tertiary, which involves another component being put into the system that performs the biological removal?
Well, the FAST system is a secondary. The tertiary would be something you're targeting something specific.
So this is a secondary system?
This would be a secondary
But
treatment.
it still does solids, total solids and nitrogen reduction?
There's an added benefit of nitrogen reduction. It's
Okay.
inherent to an IA system.
Okay. Okay. So because of that, the leach field air can be smaller. And do you know how far above existing groundwater?
We're
Leach field
5.5 feet right now.
5.5, and
Yeah.
the limit is 5, right?
Yeah, yeah, we never go right to 5.
Well, because we know what's happening.
It always comes back to bite people, and I don't know why people design right to 5.0, but
Oh, that would definitely bite you sooner or later. Okay, so I'm spending a little time because we don't do a lot of this, but it's important, especially in such a sensitive area as this, where you've got this system right on the coastal bank and right above the Oyster River. So there is a DEP regulation, 310 CMR 10.033, that says that once the Board of Health has approved a septic system, that the Conservation Commission should presume that it complies with the Wetlands Protection Act, and we've applied that before, but there are some limits in there. And one of them is that that presumption can only apply if the soil absorption system is set back at least 50 feet horizontally from the boundary of certain resource areas, including a coastal bank. So this one is 38 feet
yep.
back from the coastal bank. So how does the presumption work in that case?
You would have to look at alternatives to see if you can get to the 50 feet. And that's one of the purpose, that's the main purpose. The state wants you to look at IA technology and an upgrade. They, in their maximum feasible compliance section of Title V, there are bullet points as to under the maximum feasible compliance. And it's a prioritized list. So number one is they expect full compliance. Number two, the use of IA technology to achieve full compliance. So that's where we started with this one, the use of IA technology to see if we can get full compliance. We can't, but on that section of Title V is maximum feasible compliance. So we feel this is the best we can do on the site.
But it is 100 feet ultimately from the receiving waters, from the
Yes.
Oyster River.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in this particular case, we are measuring to a point on the slope where it stops being steeper than 10-to-1 under the DEP's guidance document on coastal bank delineation. So basically the slope's starting to peter out as you head to the east towards the system, and we're 38 feet at the break point where it starts being 10-to-1 or less. So
Am I seeing it right? There's a lot going on in this site plan.
yes.
Yes.
But it looks to me like the line indicating the top of the coastal bank goes right through the leach field. Or
No,
is that
that's the
line?
floodplain that goes.
That's the
so-
floodplain.
So the primary bank is parallel to the river. So if you look at towards the south side of the house, towards the river, you'll see a standard coastal bank is running along the top of the steeper slope adjacent to the river. And then we hit a point where the slope is less than 4 to 1. So we no longer follow the top of the slope as being the top of the bank. We're following the floodplain contour.
Okay,
And then as you go off towards the
see.
east, we're still following the floodplain contour.
yep,
But then we come to a point where I have a little tick mark and an arrow that says end of coastal bank.
Yep.
And so at that point,
Aha,
it is less than 10 to 1.
okay.
okay.
And so there's no coastal bank further inland of that. But we
Okay.
still have a floodplain.
Okay,
Yeah, because
And-
I actually didn't understand that either. 'Cause
I-
it's all one line, and I didn't catch that. So
yep.
thank you.
Thank you for that. So is there any, any concerns about having the leach field in, partly in the floodplain?
It's one of the few exceptions under the zoning bylaw that you're allowed to fill in the floodplain. But we, again, we didn't take advantage of that. We minimized it to the maximum extent possible. Given the constraints of the site, I can't see another location. As I said earlier, anywhere else, we're less than 100 feet to the well.
Right. No, I get it, it's an incredibly constrained site because of
It
the
is.
odd, the way it's configured with that very narrow top bit. So are there any, but I guess what I was getting to, are there any environmental concerns about having this system partly in a floodplain?
I don't see any in that, it's an A zone, so, although we're close to the V zone, there is a little bit of V zone on the property, but looks like we're 50 feet away from that. The state still doesn't have performance standards for they promised them
Not yet.
last
No,
summer,
they
and
promised
it
them
still
20
hasn't
years
shown
ago,
up
and
yet.
so we're still waiting. Okay.
And this is not a moderate wave zone either, so, because of those, not being in a velocity zone, well, we couldn't put it in a velocity zone anyways under Title V. But it's not a moderate wave zone either.
See, it's catching, everybody's starting to cough. There's something in the
Well,
air in
and
here.
that's Cheryl's sick.
Okay, thank you, that's it from me for now. Thank you for clarifying all of that.
Anybody else? Sorry, Bob. Did you have other?
In looking at the other option of reducing the separation of groundwater, the AI technology, as I said earlier, the main thing it does is reduce suspended solids, and the purpose of separation of groundwater are pathogens, and pathogens are suspended solids. So it's not that the IA system kills, they get removed as part of the biological process and gets settled up.
Okay.
Okay, Bob?
How you doing, David?
Good.
Just a little cough, huh?
Yes. It was worse 5 days ago, but
That time of year.
The cesspool, the current cesspools, they'll be filled,
they'll be pumped and filled, yep.
pumped and filled, okay.
And I'm sure there's more than one. And the only record we could find is that there was one in this location from the pumping records, but I imagine there's another one somewhere, because it's hard to believe just one cesspool served a house this big.
Okay, is that note on the plan? I didn't see anything, that the old cesspools would be pumped and filled.
It was somewhere.
I think it was in his,
Top to, kind of, to the top.
Oh,
Yeah, to be pumped
right,
and
yeah,
filled.
there's one for the apartment. yeah.
Oh, okay,
There it is.
good enough, thank you. The driveway is going to remain, the current driveway,
For now,
for now?
obviously, they have to trench through it to get the electric line and the air line to the fast system, but anticipating it only needs to be a shallow trench.
So just
So-
patch it for now.
We'll patch it for now, yeah.
The area by the new well, that you're gonna create a ramp for the equipment,
Yes,
and that's gonna be seeded afterwards?
yes.
You're gonna include some erosion control fabric or something along that
Yeah, after
bank?
after the well goes in, we'll remove the material that was needed to build the access, and then loam it and seed it.
Okay, with some kind of erosion control, because it is on a slope.
We can specify that, yeah.
Okay. And the area where the new leach field is going, some of it is lawn currently, and the rest is kind of invasive vegetation, you
It's
call it, I
mostly-
think.
From what I see, it's mostly invasive, yeah.
So before you extend the lawn, I was wondering if we could plant some beach grass in the area that is not lawn now.
You mean on the side slopes of the system?
Yeah, or over over the new leach field where it's currently not lawn. Just so we don't extend the lawn.
I will look into that.
And there's
So-
gonna be a vent pipe too in the leach field?
No, but there are access ports at the end for maintenance purposes, but there is not a vent.
Okay,
The diagram shows a vent
okay.
down.
And I think that was it. Thank you.
So David, the diagram shows a vent pipe,
Where?
shows a vent next to the blower and the profile of the system.
Oh,
Yep, right next to the blower.
Oh. Yep, for the treatment system, there is a vent pipe.
Okay.
Not the leach field.
Okay.
So it will be in the same trench and goes back to the blower unit.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that vent pipe's gonna be sticking up out of the ground
Next to the garage.
next to the garage, okay.
anything else?
Over there.
No, that's it, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Let's see.
Yes, Catherine?
Through the chair, David, there wasn't any, or I didn't see any performance standards for riverfront area or riverfront area marked on the plan.
This is not a river under the riverside.
Oyster River isn't considered a river on
It
the,
is not.
It is not. Isn't that just
by the
be all and
That
end all?
happened quite a while ago.
Little tiny drainage ditches are considered rivers, but the Oyster River is not, because it's a tidal estuary.
And didn't that happen because of some expert
It happened
years ago?
Years ago, when they were developing all these big houses on Stage Neck Road, and that's the
Somehow.
story I've heard, and Westward Ho. The
Yeah,
testimony was given that it's not considered a river.
isn't that funny?
Isn't
Yeah.
that? I know.
Yep.
Every time it comes up, I
Cringe.
cringe.
Yeah, Mitchell River's not a river until you get to the little footbridge at the little mill pond, then it becomes a river.
Really?
I get it.
Wow, I
Didn't
didn't know
know
that one. No,
Interesting.
yep.
All right, anybody else, anywhere? I don't see anybody online that, with a hand raised. Obviously, we're going to have to continue this because we need a mitigation plan. If nothing else, and to deal with the things that were brought up, like possibly putting beach grass in the area that's not lawn now for the leach field and dealing with those invasives. So, when did you want to meet again?
How about your last meeting in January?
That would be the 22nd. So we will continue you to January 22nd.
I move that we continue 189 Moonpenny Lane to January 22nd, 2025.
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, we
Thank you.
have one more piece of business.
Second.
Oh,
Adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Last meeting of the year.